podcast. My name is John Mark Yoder. I'm here with Wayne Weaver, and we are discussing numerous things. But in this episode, we want to continue talking about how to maintain a sound mind. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And we want to be stable in a world that is constantly evicting all challenges to thinking. And it happens. We've talked about this in another episode about how the church separates over pretty minor differences, but simply will not be able to engage those differences, and how do we maintain that? And so, Wayne, today we want to continue speaking about how to keep a peaceful heart and mind in a chaotic world. And so let's continue on. You were in our last episode, you talked about even kind of the roots of our Amish culture in this area, and it expands out into the Mennonites and others. But this thing where you said we are one of the most splinterous, coined a new word on the podcast, splinterous. But I think that in all of this, there is a lot of chance for people's hearts and minds to become disoriented. Because in a situation like this, it's often easy to see hypocrisy take root. We can look good and not be good.
Right.
We can be, and you had talked about how some things are, a lot of our church policies have been the thou shalt nots, what you can't do, not what you should do. And so anyway, I just want to begin with reading a verse that I believe is important for all of us, whether we are part of a church or not part of the church, but the words of Jesus that he spoke, because we live in a pretty crazy world, and sometimes it can be chaotic. Jesus spoke this in John 14:27. He said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." So we're talking about keeping a peaceful heart and mind in a chaotic world. Well, let's continue where we had left off in another episode and talk about this whole idea of maintaining the ability to engage with each other.
The problem internally in the mind of a person or in the heart of a person is when someone is against you, it affects you. It just does. And you will, at some point, make a decision how to respond. And part of soundness of thinking, a sound mind, is that thing that triggers somewhere in the person that is against or the person that has been spoken against. Something triggered. And if you could get to the bottom of that, why a person gets triggered. Some people get triggered they can take a lot more than others, but there is some kind of a thing, and I think this is what I've been trying to promote down through the years, very much so, is to teach people things to do, not the things not to do. We know sin is sin, and we also know that we have this inscribed in us, that most Christian people will know things not to do, but are often not instructed in things what to do. And in that is where
That's a key point, too.
It is, very much so. And we focus on the wrong thing. It's I'm okay as long as I'm inside this fence. This is why I find that a lot of people, and I wish everybody could hear this, but a lot of people that come from very strict cultural background, people, when they come to our church here at Oasis, often find they carry no conviction. One of the more staunchest individuals that I can recall in my church history came from another church, and she was satisfied at that church. Her husband wanted to come here, and when she came, she made a statement to me that I have no conviction of anything, nothing. And she was probably one of the plainer things. But the reason was because all she was taught not to do, not taught on what to do and why. And I find this, it's so easy for a lot of pastors to put a fence around everybody and then just say, stay inside that fence. Don't have to teach them why. Don't have to teach what's wrong outside the fence. You just stay inside the fence. And that's what makes so many pastors and churches down through the years, they get worn out at a certain place and in their life by way of age, and then they turn it over to somebody else. Why? Because they have established fences. And all that pastor will have to do is maintain the established fences. You look at the people.
And the sad thing about that is the people inside get used to, and that's where a lot of them do. They get used to running to the fence, and then they lean against it. And they lean against that fence until the fence moves, and they lean against that. But when the fence is gone, they have no place to lean, and they just keep running, looking for a fence.
Yeah. Now, I drive down the road here in our community, and I see all the different, you can see one person know exactly where they come from. You can see a buggy, know exactly who they are. I know that. I know by the way a beard looks. I know by the way of a dress looks. I know where they come from. I know what order they're in. And I remember being in that order where it was like that, and you found a certain contentment, just stay in that, whatever that is. But it didn't build conviction. Nothing.
No, it doesn't.
The thing of non-resistance, very strongly taught. However, non-resistance goes deeper. It's foundational. It's not bearing arms. It goes foundational. Foundational is you don't speak ill of your neighbor. You don't say bad things, which does not get observed. You can do about anything that way. But the fence is around don't bear arms, So what I'm saying is what happens inside these different cultures is that I'm seeing in our community is where you have an incident then that we had here where somebody simply went, if I can say, you can say crazy, you can say lost it in their mind to the point where they sacrificed the child to supposedly God to show their love and to all the different things I could bring out in that. But what you have is individuals that are starved and hungry for truth that they're not getting. And they, with the internet available, and nowadays they can go out and they can get some information. And what you'll often have is instructions outside pastoral care. Mm-hmm. And this is what I see as dangerous. And even the podcasts here, what we're doing, it's dangerous in a way for us to sit here and instruct people that are actually not part of being shepherded by us,
right? Because
there's no relationship. And I think this is the beginning of where we focus on sound mind and sound-mindedness is we have to carry relationship with people. And
that's so key.
It is
that
so
is so key. Absolutely.
It is to sit down and discuss and talk and even have fun with each other and to learn from each other so that we stay balanced. Because one person will have this idea. In business, I find that to be the most extreme help, and even in church administration, the same way. I want the other opinions, and I want to hear, well, what do you say? What do you say? And I derive conclusions that are very accurate often based on what I hear. I might have my own, but I'm always willing to hear and change and tweak what I hear because I'm open to other people of wisdom, and I want to hear what they say. People that are in the business world that are more equipped in that field of what they work in, they have a better perspective than me sitting in an office somewhere and just thinking it has to be this way. But when you're actually out with the hammer and the nails, you know whether this will work or not. And this is what makes good, solid thinking for good, solid growth. And in a church, it's the same way. You have to listen to those that might have a different opinion. I even like to, in children, if we take somebody out, and people that hear me now, they know I'm like this. Children go out to a restaurant somewhere. I want to know what if the children liked it. I want to know, why did you like it? They say, well, I don't like it. Why didn't you like it? I want to know why. Because to me, that feeds good information. Well, it's to this way or that way. Okay, yeah, I might not look at it that way. But it keeps me from being so strong. This is absolutely the best thing is in the world. Mm-hmm. And the other person says it's the worst that I ever eaten. How do you balance those things? But then in socializing with each other, called brotherhood, and sisters, we gather together. And so I think like this it is so important to sit around tables and discuss things and to become friends and have fellowship that way, discussing the word. One might have another opinion. That's good. I don't have a problem with hearing another opinion, not at all. It might help my opinion. This is how we build onto each other. We don't, but in the world, in this other world, is the one person has a different opinion. You feel obligated to tear that person down because he doesn't think same as I do. So I have to tear him down. I have this man out of Florida that has been on me, very strong, very, very strong. Now, I've not heard from here in some years now, but he was a bishop down in Florida, has been so extremely strong. And just saying bad things about me, just bad things. I don't even know him that well. Used to years ago when we were youth, but and then to find out he's taking has to take medication for his mind. You know, when you're in that condition where you even know that you have to take certain medicines or so, be aware that your thinking is probably wrong.
Right, and your opinion should
be humble about that. Mm-hmm. Be humble about that. Don't be strong. If your mind is extreme, humble yourself. Don't, back down. Back down. Things don't have to be your way. But it's these types of things that happen when we isolate ourselves and put ourselves away from everyone, and now we're not affected by our peers. And this is why I've made this thing that if somebody speaks in our church, I will not allow anymore. As the senior pastor, I've just not allowed people to speak in our church if don't belong in a church where there's a pastor, because the pastor trims the corners and the edges of someone. You might come up to the pastor as a shepherd. He will look out and he will say, "Oh, wait a minute, just calm down a little bit. It might not be quite that big. I've had people that called me, this got to change. This here, not lately, but this got to change. If this isn't changed, now wait a minute. Let's look at the other side. Here's what the other side thinks and what they're doing here." And you help trim the thoughts and the minds and calm down things. A shepherd does that. A shepherd has a comforting effect on people. It's when you feel like way out and down and you're giving up, a shepherd has a way of, next thing you know, that sheep is walking with the flock again. And I've gone through some things even in our church life where people left twice that people left, kind of a mini split almost. And the first was way many years ago, and it was just people were deceived, just downright deceived by things that they heard. And it wasn't right. It was wrong. And it affects you as a shepherd, especially tremendously if you've given your life for that. And somebody just comes right against you, and now what do? You have to watch that you don't get extreme because it affects you. Mm-hmm. When there's two people fighting in a church of opposite opinions, what do? You avoid the person, or can you maintain some kind of reasonableness where you see that that's actually not that person hating me, but has different thoughts? And let's hear more of that. I want to hear why you are thinking the way you are. I find that to be intriguing. No, when I was a young pastor, no, it was not intriguing. But I've learned that you have to listen to opposite opinions. You have to see, well, why are they thinking this? Sometimes it's because they were influenced by something else or somebody else, or a situation where they they don't understand and they get all hyper about something. But you have to learn to understand. And when you have enough love in your heart, you just yearn for that. I want to hear why you feel this way. Why are you tending to lean this way? What is it? Is it in opposition to me, or is it in opposition to, sometimes it's in-laws, family issues. The two just absolutely can't get along with each other because there might be competition. One is wealthier than the other, so they have to be against each other. Or jobs, or it can be anything in the line of family. And so I think it's so important to keep our minds sound and furnished and well balanced so that we don't get hit with these extreme things. And if we do, how to respond properly. And many times if I hear something, I do not respond right away, because that first thing that I would respond to is often impulse, and it's not correct. It's not really who I am. And so just give it some time and it'll go away. But this is where socializing is so important. You sit down with somebody, you can laugh about things. And God has given us a laugher, that's another word. God has given us something that we can laugh. We can sit down and we can talk about things. And in marriages, I find this device is don't bring up the things that you disagree. Bring up the things that you agree on and build on that. And that's where love broods. But on things that you disagree on, love is often not very present there. So let the primary thing be built on what you agree on and give time for other things that might change. Work on things to change. And I think this is what Charlie did. Charlie saw a generation. Charlie Kirk saw a generation that's going really bad and being influenced through and we've seen that. We were very concerned about, have been for some years, what's going on here. He did something about it, and he went into the colleges, and he sat down with these people, and he reasonably spoke, and he listened to them, and then he gave his. And it was often tremendous. It was tremendous what he did, and it affected many people, and things started changing. Zimmering down, the strong opinions and all that. But then there were some things that he would not change on, and was the explanation of male and female. That was often brought into his face. But he was very reasonable with it.
And he's very kind, yeah.
Very kind, very kind. And he tried to get that response and won a lot of people through it. And that's why Charlie has, to me, from a Christian perspective, and a soundness of Scripture interpretation in the face of whatever is out there, he's probably one of the best I've ever heard. And for somebody to take him out, what happened there is they took him out. They actually took a bullet to what true democracy is. That's what's so fatal. Because if I and you cannot dialogue to opinions, you're strong in one thing and I'm strong in another thing. If we cannot sit and just talk, not talk this out for me to persuade you, but I want to learn why you think that way, because maybe why I think this way is wrong. And so I'm willing to always change for deeper truth. I've always been that way, because truth is what sets you free, nothing else. And so I want to hear, well, how did you conclude that? And this is how we gain ground. And the heat goes down. There's no heat.
That's so good. We're going to have to bring this to a close here. But I like what you had to say there about Charlie. And I think one of the things that I admire as I looked at him is how he could stay calm in the presence of this. But I want to read and just finish off with Isaiah 26, 3-4, just as a challenge and also a place of peace for our listeners. And that just goes this way: Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength. Where your focus is, even in the midst of conflict, in that dialogue, is going to be very key to how that ends up. And so thank you so much. We'll pick this up in another episode. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.